Welcome back to Sunrise. Thanks for joining us if you're just coming along. Well, the Supporting Victims of Violence activity is a collaborative initiative led by the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, and Winrock International in partnership with community-based organizations like Eve for Life and Rise Life Management. It is scheduled to be held this Wednesday at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel.
Here to tell us more about this initiative is Deputy Chief of Party at Winrock International, Damion Hylton, and Project Manager for Rise Life Management Service, Jodie-Kay Kerr. Good morning. Welcome.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Thanks for having us.
I'm good.
So for the people who would have heard the intro, and they're probably just like, wait, that was a lot of titles, a lot of organizations. The biggest thing to take away is supporting victims of violence. What does that mean, Jodie-Kay?
Well, supporting victims of violence, we're looking at a comprehensive suite of services that we can use for persons who have experienced traumatic events. Yeah. And when I say comprehensive, we're not just looking at what resources are available. So we're looking at where we can send them, what we can do, how we can play our parts in advocating for them. So look at advocacy, where we can refer them. Where are we going to send them, what shelters are available, what psychological and physical support can be given to them as well.
Yeah, and Damion, I think it's important. Sometimes a lot of people are doing good work in their own corner, but sometimes we work in silos. How important was it for like Winrock International to try to pull everything together in this way for this particular activity?
Yeah, critical, because Winrock is an international NGO that really focuses on strengthening and empowering communities. And when we talk about communities, we're talking about, you know, physical, but also individual communities.
Yes.
And collaboration and coordination represents a central pillar in terms of our approach and our ethos as an organization. So the opportunity to work with this particular activity, it's funded by the USAID. It will be implemented by Winrock in partnership with our backbone partners, Rise Life Management and Eve for Life. And localization is a very big part of what we're trying to do. In fact, 2 years into the project, we will ensure that Rise and Eve are the ones really doing most of the work.
Yes.
We'll fade into the background and provide more technical support. And so we're avoiding the siloed approach. We're ensuring that empowerment takes place and support is given to the local practitioners, the NGOs, the CSOs in Jamaica for sustainability.
Where Winrock sits, looking at it in terms of mobilizing the funds, what does at the end of the day success look like?
Well, the goal of the activity really is to strengthen the ecosystem, the support services for witnesses, perpetrators, and victims of violence. We really want people to become survivors of violence and transition. Well, Jodie spoke about the issue of trauma. We want to ensure that the services that are provided by our state actors or you know, JCF, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Education, the various ministries, departments, and agencies, they are more strengthened and empowered to deliver those services, but persons are more willing and open to access those services. We recognize that a lot of persons are suffering, they're suffering silently.
Let's talk a little bit, Jodie-Kay, about the complexity of it. It's one thing that we talk about what we do on the back end, but what can we do as members of the community, support groups, as it pertains to prevention? What conversations can we have? Activities like these, what do we do as citizens within our communities to say, we can respond when the trauma is there, but can we address a little bit of prevention?
Okay, so, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because a part of what RISE will be doing is a series of psychological first aid trainings and safeguarding trainings. So we are going into our communities and we'll be training youth and the community members in how to manage. Just as how you have physical first aid, you need to manage your psyche and stabilize yourself. So we'll be having a series of trainings there. And I think an important conversation to have is victim blaming. We need to prevent the victim blaming. That's an important conversation. And so that is built in as well. We want to have persons understand what it looks like, because sometimes you're going through something and you have no idea what it's called. There's a name for it. And so what we want to do is to go in, let them know what it looks like. What are the resources available to you? We want to empower the community as well. We want persons to reduce the stigma. So we're going in and saying, okay, everybody goes through something. As Damion said, some persons are suffering silently. But if we have the community to come together, then we have more persons that, you know, build a community around everyone. Okay, you're going through something, I know where I can send you. You can go to Rise, you can go to E4Life, you can do this, you can find a shelter there. So we need to start having those conversations about the victim blaming, about the community support, how we can stabilize our mind, what stress management techniques exist, things along those lines.
You know what I love about this? We go to educational institutions and we get bookwork, right? We regurgitate and we test on bookwork. But a massive part of the human existence is not just knowledge of information in a book. It's management of emotions. Because from a 2-year-old that goes through terrible twos and they're tantruming all the way up, it speaks to being able to manage your emotions. I love that at the very grassroots level, you can say, look here, man, you might feel some type of way, this is how you manage it. You may have experienced this type of trauma, this is how we can navigate this, because this is life. It's absolutely incredible.
And you don't have to do it alone. And there are persons and resources available to help you as well.
Which is why we have a community,
Exactly.
right?
Indeed. You know, one of the things that I'm at pains to point out is that we have a problem with violence in our culture. That so much of the problem is not crime. We call everything crime, but a lot of it is violence, because violence behaves differently from crime. And so when we talk about the victims of violence, very often the victims of violence are many.
Yes.
And the work of Rise and E4Life and others at the community level is so great, because you're not just dealing with like intimate partner violence. Sometimes parents are very violent towards their children.
In the name of discipline.
In the name of discipline. We can be very violent towards our friends and towards our you know, our lovers, and it can be a challenge. I mean, are we taking on the broader context of violence and how we mete out violence in everyday life?
Yes, we are. In fact, you know, you spoke about the issue of interpersonal, but there's collective violence. There are communities that are in an active state of violence. We're targeting 10, what we consider hotspot communities across Jamaica, and we're looking at their realities. We're not going with a cookie-cutter approach to intervention. We're actually working with the communities and the stakeholders in the communities to identify what the priorities are, what the root causes are, and to build programming around that. And E4Life, Rise Life, they have been doing a lot of work in the past in terms of life skills, in terms of youth development work, in terms of supporting women. E4Life has done a lot of work supporting women in Jamaica. And so we believe that they are strategically positioned to help to drive the work and the change that we're trying to achieve under this activity.
Give us the event details.
So, well, we're launching on the 10th of April. We'll be at the Jamaica Pegasus Talk of the Town. And we'll be having, you know, each and everybody who is a part of the ecosystem that supports victims of violence. We're talking about persons from the Community Safety and Security branch of the JCF, and you have some relationship there.
Yes, definitely.
The Victim Support Division in the Ministry of Justice, which has a new name, you know, Social Justice Division. We're working with, you know, the Ministry of Education through the CPFSA. I heard you did something on the CPFSA earlier this morning. And so we're looking to bring the stakeholders together, create an opportunity for engagement and dialogue, and then really just share more about what we'll be doing with the project, with the activity. So you can look out for us, and we really welcome CVM offering us this opportunity to speak to this issue. Because as you says, we have a culture of violence. And when you look at violence-related injuries coming out of the hospitals, the data coming out of the hospitals, it tells a totally different story than just the raw crime data that comes from the Jamaica Constabulary Force.
Definitely.
And important too is that we'll be having the community members. Those persons are on the ground, so we can understand their realities.
Nice.
This is fantastic.
Thank you very much.
I absolutely
Keep
love
up the good work.
Great.
Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Our guests have been Damion Hylton, the Deputy Chief of Party at Winrock International, and Jodie-Kay, Kerr, Project Manager for Rise Life Management Services. Coming up next, it's Law and Order JA. We'll be right back.